Ikimoto has already revealed Mamushi's secret technique, and that technique is cloning, as this was one of the most secretive ways in which Ikimoto could have revealed this ability, and we're going to be hearing about this in the chapters to come, or potentially just seeing what Kashin Koji was mentioning to Shikamaru. But what has been shown to us is this technique in the future possibilities that Kashin Koji has seen. As in the scene in chapter 23, where we see that Kawaki ends up arriving to help Boruto out in his fight versus Jiro, we end up seeing a glimpse of the future, at least possible futures that could take place. And in those futures we see various things like Himawari, Sarada, Hidari, but we do end up seeing Bug. And when we see Bug, although it is not the clearest image ever, we do end up seeing multiple different people. We do see Bug, but we see other characters, and they all appear to have the same appearance of Bug. They have the same garment of clothing that is surrounding Bug's shoulders, his chest to neck area that he has, and none of the other Shinju members that we have seen have this same appearance. Nobody else has the same garment. This is a garment style that is unique to Bug and Bug alone. This is why I personally believe that what we're seeing in this moment is Bug fighting someone. We do see that with Kashin Koji, when he is using the 10 direction, it ends up looking like various scrolls or various movie scene scrolls that we do end up seeing at times. But right before the Bug scene, we do end up seeing somebody who has a similar hairstyle to Daemon and Eida. And what is quite interesting with that situation, it does end up telling us that Daemon or Eida ends up meeting with Mamushi, and in that moment we have Mamushi who ends up activating that ability to counteract or fight his opponent. One could potentially be Daemon and the other could potentially be Eida, because we already know that they both have this highlighted part of their hair which stands out from any other character design that we have seen in the past. And potentially this hints right here that we have been given by Ikimoto may be the method in which we see Mamushi end up overcoming Daemon's most powerful ability, and that is his reflective ability. As I am not the only person who thinks this, we have somebody in my comments, multiple people who end up sharing this same view, one in specific being TRW Cobra. He believes that Mamushi is going to spam clones till Daemon runs out of energy. This is a similar concept that we end up seeing with other cyborgs like Delta. Delta had this absorption ability that is quite similar to those that we have seen with the Karma and we have also seen with Momoshiki, but the way in which Naruto ended up defeating that was by going along with what was happening, by going along with the absorption until it met its critical limit. The only problem here would be that this is a Senjutsu, so either it'd have to be that Mamushi ends up spamming an ability with all of his various clones that potentially drains Daemon's chakra, which means that although this is still a Senjutsu, like we did learn when it comes to Kawaki and his Senjutsu abilities, it does end up draining a lot of chakra, and that would make a lot of sense. So Mamushi could spam a specific ability that would then allow him to drain Daemon's chakra, where he is no longer able to reflect those abilities. One thing that is particularly interesting when it comes to that method, and I do see it as a potential method if Mamushi is capable of finding an ability that doesn't harm him. Because the main thing is, yes, okay, he could spam it with various different clones, but at the end of the day, he is going to be receiving that damage. And that's why I believe that there is a specific ability that Mamushi may have when we look into his mythology that may have this factor, allowing Mamushi to be a bug for Daemon, a simple flaw in Daemon's ability that Mamushi and Mamushi alone is able to counteract, allowing him to be the worst person that Daemon could face. But something that I also found to be quite interesting is by the comment that was posted right here, and I'm just going to say Prince because I can't read your name, but he says it's not clones, more like multiplication. The more you kill him, the more he multiplies. This may also be another very interesting way in which we could see Mamushi be the natural antithesis for Daemon. Because hypothetically speaking, Mamushi uses a said ability and then Daemon reflects it, and then it causes Mamushi to die, or it causes Mamushi to have an injury, which later then causes Mamushi to be cloned. And we see this over and over and over again, which potentially leads to multiple different Mamushis coming to be, a bit like cutting the head of a snake, and then we see other heads pop in. This is something that we also saw when it comes to the Rinnegan, as this comment right here ends up pointing out. Almost like the ability of a 3-headed dog summoned by the Rinnegan. The more it is eliminated, the more it ends up multiplying. This is another intriguing way that we could view Mamushi's potential ability. And this is a particular sentiment that a lot of people share. As you can see by this comment right here, he says, I think maybe his ability could be related to the Shadow Clone Jutsu. Create real, exact copies of his original capable, independent actions, thoughts for a barrage assault, just like Naruto. It could be how he overwhelms Daemon. Maybe there is a set amount of limitations in which Daemon is capable of reflecting somebody's ability. This is where something like a Shadow Clone Jutsu or a clone ability would come to be really handy. As we do end up seeing that Daemon fights multiple people, I'm not saying that he's not capable of fighting multiple people at once, but we haven't seen Daemon reflect attacks from 2 different sources at once. So maybe Daemon has a limitation in which he is only capable of reflecting to one person's ability at a time. So if you have a clone ability, you are capable of bypassing Daemon's ability, which basically enables you to maybe one of the attacks that you have are reflected, but the other one that is made by your clone or is made by the second opponent who is fighting Daemon, that attack can't be reflected because Daemon can only reflect one person's attack at once. And that would be an intriguing weakness to have, making characters who can use clones quite viable versus somebody like Daemon, but it would still make Daemon's ability quite OP. It would simply mean that there is a workaround around it, and I also like this way of thinking. Potentially, this is what we could end up seeing. But going back on the mythology that I was speaking of, I have this beautiful thread that I ended up discovering on Twitter, which discusses the mythology surrounding Mamushi, something that I've been discussing with various different subscribers in the comment section of various different videos. So it's not something that is necessarily new, but it is a very interesting thread discussing everything. So obviously you can see his socials right here if you want to read it for yourself. But he first begins by discussing the mythology surrounding Mamushi, which basically is that Mamushi is the name of a venomous snake in Japan. In Japan folklore, Mamushi is feared for its poisonous bite, and sometimes symbolizes cunning danger hidden in small forms, since it is smaller than other snakes but more lethal. So one thing we do end up seeing, a very interesting aspect of Mamushi's ability, is this earth style that he seems to be able to use, or potentially wood style. I did say earth style because there are some connections with both with the land of stone that I do remember. I don't necessarily know if it is true or not. I'll probably have to look at it again. But since the Senju end up using wood style, it could still be interpreted as wood style. But Bug has been shown to have this figure or this attack where he does end up, at first it did look more like claws or a jaw to me. Obviously snakes do have jaws, but you can definitely see the resemblance when you put 2 to 2 together. And with Mamushi's particular mythology, the name itself indicating a venomous snake, it would make quite a lot of sense that Mamushi would potentially have a poisonous ability, as a venomous snake would have. And this ability that we see right here may be a major hint that Ikimoto was attempting to lay for us, something that does end up indicating both Mamushi's lore, as we did see this before we got the actual name of Mamushi, so this was already being hinted to being the case. But that's not the only aspect of Mamushi's name, as we know that Mamushi actually comes from Bug, and we know that Bug in and of itself has some links to technology and especially software programming. And the reason why this is very important is because we know with Eida and we know with Daemon, they all have this link to software programming and coding. Code himself, we know that he has that link to it. And this entire group that we did see end up having an alliance, although it was temporary, all of their names dealt with programming, with software engineering in some sort. And when we see Bug, we see this idea of a glitch or an error. And I've already discussed it earlier in the video about how it can manifest in his ability, but also this is strongly hinted by Ikimoto himself. the fact that with these characters, we're seeing an unrestricted demonstration of their personalities. So if you see any differences between Bug and Mamushi, those differences are simply Bug as a human who had better self-control and could hide his shadow self. He was capable of doing that a lot better because he was an older entity. But with Mamushi, he is a lot newer. I don't know how fast the timeline has been going, but it probably hasn't even been a month since the birth of Mamushi himself. So when it comes to hiding his shadow self and his persona, this is something that Bug is not capable of doing. And this is why these characters end up revealing the totality of the characters that they come from. With Shinki, we saw the different sides of Shinki when it came to his personal character, and with Mamushi, we're seeing the encapsulation of Bug as a person. And this is also another aspect of the Senju that I really like a lot. But connecting the dots, we could potentially see Mamushi embody this aspect of a bug. We know that with Bug, these are errors. These are things that software engineers may have overlooked when creating a game or creating a software, which leads to errors or mistakes taking place. And with Daemon, Daemon is a background processor that basically runs without a user interaction. And what's quite interesting is that whenever there's a software and there's a specific bug or an error, it could be a way for somebody to exploit a program. So with the name of Daemon himself and the fact that Mamushi comes from Bug, Mamushi may be a bug in Daemon's personal software that allows him to bypass or causes Daemon's abilities to glitch or not work as it was intended. As that is exactly what Mamushi is, a bug, as he comes from a literal character in Bug. So right here we could be seeing something interesting, and for all of my people who do take software engineering classes or are personally working in the field, let me know if I ended up using it correctly on the meanings of these various characters' name and how it could interlink with various different abilities. But this is why I believe that Bug may be the very own character to nullify and expose Daemon's ability. We do see this aspect of various abilities not working the same when it comes to Mamushi. We see this when Boruto ends up using his lightning style, it doesn't really work as it was intended. And we could potentially see this being the case when it comes to Daemon. And we also see this being the case when it comes to Eida. Eida's ability, although she could see him, for some odd reason, it never happened before, and it didn't even happen to the strongest character we know right now, being Jira, but it happened with Mamushi. Mamushi was able to see her, even though that is not usually supposed to happen. It's almost like an error or a glitch that is not supposed to happen, almost like a glitch in the game that allows you to have a specific exploit and be able to do either an infinite money glitch, various games that you have, an infinite XP glitch, just due to that specific bug in the software that you have. Mamushi's character could really just be a character who is able to nullify other people's abilities, or an ability that is used on Mamushi just simply loses all effect or doesn't work as intended, or simply doesn't work fully. I really like the aspect of Mamushi's character, and I really would like to see how it ends up going. But in addition to that, I truly believe that Mamushi has some sort of venomous ability or a poisonous ability, and that ability will not work on himself. And the reason why that is important is if Mamushi ends up using that ability over and over again, and Daemon ends up reflecting that same ability, but it doesn't affect Mamushi. Just like discussed early on in the video, we could have an ability that ends up draining Daemon's chakra, as we do know that Senjutsu does still drain chakra, and because of that, we see Daemon potentially lose the ability to reflect other people's abilities. And for that short period of time when Daemon doesn't have chakra, we see Mamushi being able to attack Daemon. So there are multiple different ways we could see a workaround, and I'm so interested. This is one of the fights I'm the most interested in right now when it comes to this upcoming arc. I really want to see Mamushi take a W. I want to see the Senju take a W too, to increase the stakes for the series right now. With Daemon, it is quite interesting because Daemon is hyped up as the strongest guy, But for some odd reason, looking at this disgusting freak as Mamushi, I'm sorry, I just have to call it as it is, but somebody like Mamushi, he gives me this weird vibe and I just can't picture him losing, or at least not losing right now. I can't see him going out like Ryu, and I definitely can't see him going out like Mitsuri. So I do believe that he will be the first Senju to take a W. But if you want to understand a lot more about these characters, and their persona, and what exactly they signify in the series, make sure to watch this video right here, as I discuss all the major writing when it comes to the Senju as a whole.